Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The evening air was thick, almost too heavy to breathe, when I heard her voice float from the doorway. "Come inside. It's quiet." Her words were soft, almost casual, but the way she looked at me, eyes lingering a second too long, lips curved in that subtle, knowing smile, made my chest tighten. I didn't move immediately. Something in the way the lamplight hit her hair, catching gold at the edges, made me freeze, caught in the pull of something I shouldn't be feeling. She stepped closer, and the scent of her, warm, faintly floral, brushed against me before anything else did. The space between us seemed to shrink with every heartbeat. My hand twitched, almost instinctively, but I stopped myself. Every small movement she made, the tilt of her head, the casual brush of her fingers along the doorframe, felt loaded, like unspoken invitations wrapped in everyday gestures. I could feel her watching me, the quiet sound of her breathing threading through the tension, echoing my own. "Quiet," she repeated, almost a whisper this time, leaning just slightly closer so that her shoulder brushed mine. The contact was brief, nothing dramatic, yet it sent a ripple through me that I couldn't ignore. My pulse spiked, and I realized I was staring, too much probably, but I couldn't look away. There was a strange electricity in the air, a dance of restraint and curiosity that neither of us was willing to name aloud. The room inside was dim, a soft golden glow spilling over worn furniture and the faint scent of something homey, yet intoxicating. Every instinct screamed at me to cross that threshold, yet another part of me hesitated, caught between desire and the unspoken rules I'd learned to follow. Her smile widened slightly, just enough to make my stomach twist in anticipation, as if she knew exactly the effect she was having. And then she tilted her head, one hand lingering on the doorframe, eyes locking with mine in a way that silenced everything else. The quiet wasn't just around us. It was inside me, too, tense and charged, waiting for what would come next. I knew, even in that frozen moment, that stepping forward would change everything. But I didn't know if I was ready, or if she wanted me to. The door clicked shut behind me, and the quiet seemed almost alive, pressing in from every corner of the room. She stepped aside, and I caught a glimpse of her silhouette against the soft glow of a lamp. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Our breaths, shallow and uneven, were the only sound, and it felt like the room itself was holding its breath with us. I moved forward, slowly, almost hesitantly, and our hands brushed, just the backs of our fingers, but the contact lingered far longer than it should have. She didn't pull away. Instead, her eyes flicked up to mine, and in that brief exchange, something unspoken passed between us. A tension, taut and quiet, yet impossible to ignore. Her shoulder bumped mine accidentally, or maybe not, and the shiver that ran up my spine was undeniable. Every small movement was a minefield. Every glance seemed weighted with intent. I noticed the subtle tilt of her chin, the way her hair fell across one shoulder, and the faint warmth radiating from her body. I wanted to step closer, to close that space, but hesitation and anticipation warred inside me. "Are you comfortable?" she asked softly, almost too softly, her voice brushing past my ear in a way that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. The words were innocent, yet loaded, carrying an undertone I couldn't place, or maybe didn't want to name. I nodded, trying to sound casual, though my heart was pounding like a drum I couldn't silence. A laugh escaped her lips, quiet and brief, but it held something playful, almost teasing. Her hand rested near mine on the edge of the table as she leaned forward to straighten a glass, and our fingers touched again. This time it was intentional, I think, but her eyes never left mine. I caught the way her lips pressed together, as if she was keeping herself from saying something, anything. The room seemed smaller now, the air heavier, every sound magnified. My pulse raced, and I felt like I was teetering on the edge of something forbidden. She took a slow step closer, closing the last few inches between us, and I could feel the heat of her presence. The subtle inhale she didn't try to hide, the soft brush of fabric as she shifted. We were suspended in that fragile, electric moment, teetering on the line between a glance and a touch, between restraint and surrender. I knew, even before she spoke or did anything, that something was about to cross the line. And neither of us could stop it. Her hand lingered on the edge of the table, just above mine, and I could feel the faint tremor in her fingers. The room was dim, the shadows stretching across the walls like silent witnesses, and every sound, our breathing, the creak of the floor, the faint hum of the street outside, felt amplified. I shifted slightly, and the heat of her body brushed against mine. Neither of us moved away. Neither of us spoke. Our eyes met, and in that instant, everything became sharper. The curve of her jaw, the subtle rise and fall of her chest, the way her lips parted almost imperceptibly. I swallowed, heart hammering, trying to convince myself to step back. But the air between us was thick, charged, almost magnetic, pulling me closer despite reason. She leaned forward slightly, the motion casual yet deliberate, and our knees brushed under the table. I flinched, then froze. She didn't flinch back. Instead, she held my gaze, a hint of something daring in her eyes, something unspoken but undeniable. Every glance felt like a conversation without words. Every small touch a question I wasn't sure I wanted to answer. "Careful?" she whispered, the word barely audible, almost a tease, almost a warning. Her breath brushed my ear, warm and quick, and I realized how close we had gotten without even noticing. I could feel the tension coiling tight in my chest, a mix of anticipation and fear that I might say or do the wrong thing, or maybe the right thing in the wrong moment. I wanted to speak, to break the quiet, but my throat was dry. I noticed the faint tremor of her shoulder as she shifted closer, the subtle tilt of her head, the way her fingers twitched near mine. It was almost unbearable, this delicate balance between restraint and desire, like walking on a razor's edge where one misstep could shatter everything, or change it forever. We stayed suspended there, inches apart, caught in a current of attraction neither of us fully controlled. Every micro-movement, her hair brushing her cheek, the soft inhale before she spoke, the faint brush of our knees, made it clear how fragile the moment was, how close we were to crossing a line we couldn't undo. And yet, neither of us moved forward. We were trapped in that suspended space, where danger and desire mingled, hearts racing, breaths shallow, waiting for the inevitable spark that would either ignite or destroy the fragile tension. Something was coming, something inevitable, but not yet. She moved closer again, just a fraction, but close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her body. My chest tightened, every nerve on edge, as if the space between us had condensed into a single, impossible thread of tension. The lamp cast her shadow across the wall, elongated and trembling slightly, and I realized I was mirroring her every subtle motion without even thinking. Her fingers twitched near mine, and I let my hand hover, too aware of how close it could get. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of her perfume, warm, intoxicating, subtle, but it wrapped around me, pulling me in. Every heartbeat seemed louder, each exhale a risk. I could see her lips pressed together, almost a whisper of restraint, and her eyes glinting with something I didn't dare name. "Stay," she murmured, soft, hesitant, but there was a command in it, a pull I couldn't resist. Her voice, low and intimate, brushed against my skin as if it had weight. I wanted to obey, wanted to step closer, but every rational thought warred with instinct. My hand itched to move, to bridge the last fraction of space, but I held back, held onto that taut moment, savoring the pull between danger and desire. Her shoulder brushed mine. Not an accident, I was certain, and I felt a jolt, a tiny spark that could easily ignite. The warmth of her arm, the faint brush of her hair, even the soft inhale she couldn't fully control. It all pressed against me like a silent promise. The room itself seemed to shrink, closing around us, amplifying every sound. The soft rustle of her clothes, the faint tapping of her nail on the table, the quickened beat of my own pulse. We were suspended, teetering on the edge of something inevitable. Every glance, every micro-movement carried weight. The air was charged, almost painful in its intensity. My stomach twisted with anticipation, my fingers itching to cross a line I wasn't sure I had the right to. Her lips parted slightly, her breath hitching in that way that made my own inhale catch in response. And then she tilted her head, eyes locking with mine, closer still as if daring me, inviting me, warning me. The tension was so sharp it hurt. Every instinct in me screamed forward, yet something deeper held me back. It was only a moment, yet it felt infinite, like the instant before a storm breaks. And I knew, without question, that whatever happened next would change everything. I was leaning just a fraction closer, drawn by the pull of her presence, when the sudden click of the front door made us both jump. My heart slammed against my ribs, a jolt that ripped through the fragile tension between us. She froze, eyes wide for just a second, and I realized she wasn't expecting anyone. Or maybe she hadn't heard it. My pulse didn't slow. If anything, it tightened the knot in my chest, making every inch between us feel impossibly charged. Her hand had hovered near mine, inches away, when she flinched slightly at the sound, her fingers brushing mine in a fleeting, accidental contact that felt electric. Neither of us pulled back. Instead, we lingered in that impossible proximity, each movement deliberate, each breath heavy and unsteady. The room had become a trap, a private arena where nothing else existed but us. And now, the outside world threatened to intrude, making the air even more dangerous. "Did someone come in?" I asked, my voice low, almost a whisper, though my throat was dry. My words trembled more than I intended. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she let a small, slow smile creep across her face, like she was aware of how close we were to crossing a line, like she was daring me to make a move despite everything. Before I could respond, there was a soft laugh from the hallway, distant but deliberate, followed by the muffled sound of footsteps. A sudden awareness of the real world pressed in. Someone could see, someone could hear. My chest tightened, but instead of fear, there was a thrilling edge, a dangerous sharpness that made my skin tingle. The idea that we could be caught, that this fragile tension could explode in the wrong hands, made every glance, every slight touch, every stolen breath feel sharper, more illicit. Her eyes darted toward the doorway, then back at me, a silent acknowledgement passing between us. We were trapped in this moment, in this heat, with no room to step back without losing something. Something unspoken, urgent, and irresistible. I noticed the way her fingers flexed, the subtle tremor in her shoulder, the quick inhale she tried to hide. Every micromotion spoke louder than words could. She was as captivated, as conflicted, as unable to resist as I was. I wanted to reach out, to cross the final inches, to see if the spark between us could ignite. But the sound of the door opening again, this time closer, froze me in place. My chest heaved, my pulse hammering, and yet I couldn't move, couldn't retreat. We were caught in our own gravity, two bodies teetering on the edge of surrender and restraint, and the world outside had no idea how close we were to losing control. And in that suspended moment, the electricity in the air became unbearable, impossible to ignore, impossible to escape. Something was coming, something neither of us could stop, and I had no idea who or what was about to change everything. The world seemed to collapse around us, every sound and shadow fading into a pulse of heat and tension. She stepped closer, closer than ever, until I could feel the warmth of her breath against my cheek. Her hand brushed my arm, deliberate this time, sending a jolt through me that left me dizzy. I didn't pull away, neither did she. The quiet hum of the room vanished, replaced by the rhythm of our racing hearts. "I can't," I started, voice thick, but she silenced me with a look, one that was sharp, demanding, and impossibly intimate all at once. Her lips hovered near mine, a whisper away, and the entire space between us felt electric, taut with the gravity of everything we'd restrained. My hand moved of its own accord, brushing against hers, our fingers intertwining. It was chaotic, dangerous, and intoxicating. Every micromotion, her hair slipping against my shoulder, her lips parting slightly, the subtle inhale she tried to hide, felt like a spark, a warning, a dare. We were on the edge, teetering between surrender and restraint, and the air was heavy with anticipation. The quiet, once comforting, had become unbearable, a pressure that demanded release. And then it happened. That line we danced around, the invisible boundary of control, shattered. Our bodies collided in a slow, urgent motion, lips meeting in a kiss that was part restraint, part explosion. Her arms found my neck. Mine circled her waist. Every breath, every heartbeat, every shiver was magnified, raw, impossible to contain. The world had narrowed to the heat of her skin, the taste of her lips, the trembling weight of desire we'd held back for too long. Time fractured. The room, the shadows, the outside world, all irrelevant. There was only this, only us, only the impossible pull that had simmered for so long, finally unleashed. Then, just as the intensity reached its peak, a sudden noise shattered the bubble. A soft, deliberate cough from the doorway. We froze, eyes wide, hearts hammering. My stomach dropped. It wasn't someone random. It was someone who shouldn't have been there. Someone whose presence made the forbidden moment infinitely more dangerous. Her eyes met mine, wide, incredulous, and in that instant, the heat of the moment collided with the shock of exposure. Whatever we'd just unleashed was now teetering on the edge of ruin, and there was no turning back. The door creaked open further, and we weren't alone. The sudden presence in the doorway had forced us apart, our bodies pulling away instinctively, hearts still hammering. I could see the flush on her cheeks, the small tremor in her hands, the way her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. Even with the interruption, the air between us remained charged, electric, impossible to ignore. Every glance, every hesitant step, still carried the weight of what had almost happened, and what would inevitably come again. She took a slow breath, letting the tension settle just enough to speak. "We need to be careful," she murmured, but there was a hint of amusement in her eyes, a spark that refused to fade. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat, feeling the lingering heat of her touch on my skin. The moment had passed, but it hadn't left us. We moved to the living room, trying to act normal, but every micro-behavior betrayed the intensity of what had almost erupted. The brush of a hand against an arm, the way our eyes found each other across the room, the almost imperceptible smile that spoke volumes. Even in conversation, there was an unspoken rhythm, a tension that had shifted into something softer, almost tender, yet still bold, still alive. Minutes stretched into hours, yet the magnetic pull remained. The outside world existed, but inside that apartment, the air was thick with possibility, each pause between words echoing the moment we'd shared in fragments. We had crossed a threshold, even if only in spirit, and it had left a trace we couldn't erase. As I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door. Our fingers brushed once more. A fleeting, electric contact, and we lingered in the doorway longer than necessary. Her smile was soft, knowing, but not a closure. It was a promise, a question, a dare. I stepped out, the cool night air hitting my skin, but the warmth of the apartment, and her presence, clung to me. Even as I walked away, the tension remained. The story wasn't over. It had only evolved, leaving a smoldering fire in its wake. Every glance, every memory, every heartbeat carried the intimacy of that night. The line between restraint and surrender had been tested, and neither of us would forget it. And somewhere in the quiet, I knew it wasn't the last time we'd dance on that edge.